I think, we're all on our own journey. It's sometimes you have to remind yourself that, do the things that are right for you, not the things you think you should be doing or you think that other people want or that other people are doing. Because, I see this a lot just in my field, but I think everybody sees it everywhere. You see all these people doing all these things. They're like, I should be doing that too, where maybe not.
Counts down like that. All right. Welcome to another show, Tools, Talents, and Techniques. And today, my guest is Mr. Jonathan Hawkins. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Dustin, thanks for having me. Happy to be
So,
here.
yeah, this is going to be good, especially when I saw you first on LinkedIn. And my wife owns a legal recruiting firm, so a lot of times there's things in the legal field that I see. And there was a post that you had, and it jumped out to me. And then I started to look at your profile, and I was like, "Oh, wow, this is a unique niche that you have, or that you've developed." So before we go any further, could you please briefly introduce yourself and say a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I'm a lawyer by trade, but I'm the founder of a law firm called Law Firm GC, and our niche practice is representing other lawyers and law firms, really soup to nuts. So from forming a firm to shutting a firm down and everything in between.
And so that niche, the lawyer for lawyers, that jumped out to me. And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting because especially when you talk about coaches and advisors and people that do that, you would imagine that somebody that's an attorney would know how to do a lot of these things. And so I'm interested to hear about your journey and how you came to that point. So let's start from where you grew up. How did your origin story begin?
So I grew up in South in LA, Lower Alabama on the Gulf Coast. My dad was a lawyer, and I really did not want to be a lawyer. I was really good at math and science. Came to Atlanta and went to Georgia Tech, got an engineering degree. But before I graduated, I knew I did not want to be a lawyer, or I did not want to be an engineer. I also knew I did not want to be a lawyer. So at some point, I went to the career services, had this program. You go in there, you take all these assessments and tests, and then they tell you what might be suited for you. And the top 10, they gave me a top 10 career choice, and 5 of the 10 were some type of lawyer. And I was like, and still I said, I'm not doing it. So took some time off after undergrad, lived in some variety of places and did variety of things. And then finally I said, all right, it's time to grow up. And of course I went to law school. So that's what got me into law. We can talk how we got to this specific niche if you'd like, or I don't know if you had another question.
Well, no, I do have another question. So when you were going to be an engineer, was there anything specific that, turned you off from that?
I don't know. So Georgia Tech, really good school, really hard school, really harsh school, at least back then. And I was just sick of it and just did not want to do it. I can't even remember why. I got an industrial engineering degree, which is really sort of an efficiency optimizing type. It's like a business engineering degree, sort of, but traditionally it's optimizing factory floors and FedEx routes and plane routes and that sort of thing. And I just did not want to be an engineer. I was tired of it.
Mm. And so when you started taking the assessments and, you came out that you should be an attorney, was there something specific about that? And from my understanding of people that are attorneys that I speak with, that there's either like litigation, right? Like people either fall in two camps. Was there one that you fell into that they were saying like this is for you?
I can't remember. I think I saved that document. That I have it somewhere.
Yeah,
I gotta
excuse me,
go.
litigation and like transaction. I didn't finish my sentence there. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I got
Well, I
excited.
can't remember exactly what they were. I mean, I think one was a judge, one might have been like a patent lawyer. I can't remember, but I have that. I have that somewhere. I saved it. So I should go find that. I'd have to dig through all my boxes, but that is an interesting question. I'm not exactly sure. And I also wonder what the other 5 were. Was one of them like CEO or something? Maybe that's my destiny too. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so then you start practicing law, And did you love it right away? Was it like, oh yeah, this is for me?
I did like it. So I went to school, and then after the first year after that, I clerked for a federal judge, which was a good sort of in between from the theory of law school and practice. It was still sort of theoretical, but you started to see a little bit more of the practice. So I did that for a year, and then I went to a litigation firm, and that's what I wanted to do. And it was fun. It was awesome. I loved it. So got to do trials. I was doing depositions. I was flying all over the country, you know, deposing experts and witnesses, and it was really cool. But it got old, and I just after about 18 months, it was really medical malpractice defense is what it was, and I really didn't like the medicine. And so then I really liked business. I've always liked business. So my pivot was to switch to another firm to do basically business litigation. So disputes related to, and that firm did a lot of real estate disputes, some construction disputes, and then a lot of just run of the mill business disputes. And then the last thing, which starts to lead to where I am now, was business divorces of closely held businesses of really all types.
So when you're doing this and you're seeing all these different business types and doing that, how much of the did you learn about these other business? I understand that many times you need to know enough to be dangerous, but did you start to see like, oh, this people do this and this is how this works and those type of things? Did that really start to come out during that time?
It really did, and I loved it. And some weird, I mean, just some cool things. There are so many off the beaten, unknown types of businesses out there that you've never heard of, and people are making. Can I cuss on this? I don't know.
Yeah,
A,
yeah. Please let
a
it fly.
shit ton of money, and you're like, I didn't even know this was a business. And then, of course, there's some dispute related to it. So then you start to learn about that industry. So I learned a ton, and I did all sorts of things. I still use all that knowledge. I did that for many, many years. I still fall back on that. So I just learned a little bit, piece of this, piece of that, and it just sort of stacks. And then you meet really cool people too, that are running the businesses. And that's always been of interest to me. So of course I was always asking them, how did you get into it? How'd you do this? And you stack a little bit of knowledge every time.
Yeah. And so one of the things, like when I started working in commercial real estate, that's one of the things that jumped out at me, just to use as an example, let's say like a retail center. And once you see behind the curtain of how it actually works and how many different people are involved, it's not just the buyer and seller, then there's the leasing agent, there's the property manager, but then beyond that, there's the roofer, the signage, the lighting vendor, the day porter, like there's all these different trades. And then in each one of those companies, there's an HR department, there's accounting, there's this and that, and then there's the owner. And so you're like, all of you people are making money. Like
Yeah.
everybody here is just making money, but to make it all work together, it's pretty remarkable. So I love that type of stuff and just being curious and finding out more.
Yeah, it was awesome. And again, so the first firm that I switched to, it has started as really a real estate firm, and they represented owners and developers of commercial properties of all types, a lot of retail, but all types. And then, of course, um, another reason I made the move is so a lot of my friends from Georgia Tech that I graduated with went into construction and commercial real estate. And so I was thinking, hey, I'll, maybe I can represent them if I go to a place that actually does that kind of legal work. So that was part of the reason I went to that firm as well.
Okay. So I want to make sure that we spend the bulk of our time talking about what you do now, because again, the lawyer for lawyers, like thinking like a doctor for doctors, like you specialize in that. What is it, or what was that moment that you said, here's the opportunity, here's the gap, here's what's missing for these folks?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I was doing business divorces. So basically business breakups of closely held businesses. And I also mentioned my dad was a lawyer back in my hometown, and we would just talk shop. And he had, over a span of maybe 3 years, had handled 5 different law firm breakups. And he just said, Jonathan, Atlanta is 10 times bigger than Mobile. You should just look around. There's got to be a ton of these going on. So said, okay. And I started looking around, reading the legal journals, legal papers, looking at other websites, just trying to figure out, was there anybody in Atlanta who had planted the flag that said, I do law firm breakup work? And there was not anybody. Now, there were people that dabbled. So somebody might do one here and somebody else does one here, but there's no one that said, this is what I do. And so that was the seed. That was the kernel that started it all. So then I bought a bunch of books, started in all my spare time. I would read the books. I started reading cases. I started doing all these things, talking to people, started writing articles, started speaking about it a little bit. And then every lawyer I met, I would just start talking through the issues because they were interesting to me. And then some of my friends who had law firms, I started doing some work for them for free, a little pro bono work, so I could get some reps. And then somebody referred my first paying client to me, and I got one. And I was like, this is awesome. And then it took maybe another 6 months till I got the next one. And then I just kept getting a few, and then the rest is history.
So how long ago was that when you first started the practice?
This was about 15 years ago.
Okay.
Is when I really started down the path. And, I kept my main practice going. I was just adding a little at a time. And slowly my old practice shrank and this practice grew.
Yeah. Was there a common theme that was happening that was causing these breakups that you were seeing?
So I've distilled it to two big things. And this probably applies to maybe any partnership, any closely held business. Two things. One are built up resentments among the partners. And that can mean a lot of things. So you're getting paid more than I am. I'm doing more work than you. I just don't, all the stuff. I resent you for whatever reason. And then the second category is the end of the office lease. That oftentimes is when a business or a law firm will break up because nobody wants to re-sign another 5 to 10 years.
When you first started and see this, is this something that you distilled early on? Like, did you notice, or is this something that you've just learned over the years?
I've just, I've done a ton of these. I do. I mean, we're in the middle of one right now. Well, I've got several going, but you just, I try to distill things as best I can. And I post, you mentioned LinkedIn. I post a lot there. So I'm always like, how can I put this on a LinkedIn post? So I'm always trying to think in that way, but it took years. I mean, everybody asks me, is it the money? Is it all about the money? And that is one reason. Often that is a big reason, but it's not the only reason.
When people, so I want to talk specifically about the built up resentment. I know sometimes, especially when people don't necessarily respect what the other person, and this isn't for law, I guess this is just any type of relationship dynamic. Let's say somebody in the firm is better at, marketing and business development. Other person is really analytical, and the person that's really analytical doesn't understand the business development. And they're like, that doesn't have like this, that's not doing the thing. Have there been any techniques or things that you've seen that help absolve some of that as far as, like coaching or things that usually help?
I think two things that really help. One is to have really deep conversations on a variety of topics before you go into it. That's number one. But if someone is already in it and they'd skip that step, I think the big thing is you've got to communicate. You've got to communicate. And it's when you don't, when you keep it in and you're just thinking it, it festers and it festers and you just keep the resentment just grows. And then all of a sudden, boom, it explodes and it's too late then. It's like a marriage. I mean, it's like truly like a marriage. If you can put these things, it doesn't mean you're going to get over it, but the chances of getting over it are way better if you just put it out on the table early on. And then, the partnerships that I've seen that last, and I've seen a lot with it, of lawyers that it's just a handshake. A lot of law firms don't even have written partnership agreements, which blows the mind of a lot of people.
Yeah, well, mine included.
Yes.
That's pretty wild.
Yes. And the ones that last and work, it's truly, it's trust, respect, and compromise. And sometimes there are people that just are incapable of those things, and it's just not going to last.
In the life cycle of business formation through like growing a law firm and doing all those things, what do you think is your favorite parts of it?
So my favorite part of what I get to do
Besides
is,
getting paid, besides when
well,
the check comes in.
that's table stakes there. My favorite part is meeting cool founders, people that are doing cool stuff. And by virtue of what I do, I get to, I meet a lot of lawyers, and there's so many different business models, people doing really cool sort of side businesses related to the law. People that have grown their firm, from a handful of lawyers to 400 lawyers. That is just really impressive to me. And I love to meet those people. And that's the funnest part, is getting to talk to those people.
Yeah. Is there a common theme of like the mindset of those people that you work with?
And I struggle with this. I think we all do, as we're trying to grow a business. It's the old, what got you here is not going to get you there thing. And so they have ambition, but they have a growth mindset, and they're constant learners because, again, I'm experiencing this now in my firm. We've had pretty good growth, but we're sort of at a spot where I'm maxed out and I'm driving myself crazy. So now I'm like, okay, we got to change that, lay some systems, get other people in. So then we go to the next level, and then we'll get to some level and that'll break. And then I'll have to sort of reinvent myself again and go to the next. And the ones that have really got, become really grown the firms are able to do that.
Hmm. And it's funny, like because I think we all need coaches or people that not necessarily coaches, but people that we respect and admire to help you see things from an outside perspective. And so to hear you say that of, you're a lawyer for lawyers, it's like you need a lawyer for a lawyer for a lawyer to help you look at things.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a big believer in coaches. I have mine, and I have had my fair share of coaches along the way,
yeah.
and there will be more. I know.
Yeah. And another part of that is looking at mentor. When you talk about the people that you see and doing business and learning and doing cool things, I look at, I don't even like to call it mentorship, but looking at people as inspiration. It's a big part of why I do the show, of like, that's cool. How'd you do that? What are the things that you do to do that? And I feel like you can learn from everybody, and to be curious and look into those things. And sometimes, like, it doesn't even have to be a real person. Sometimes even fiction or like a superhero, like whatever it is, if you can look at it and like take a little piece of that knowledge or wisdom from that and implement it in your life, is key. But also on the coaching piece, I have a friend who told me a while ago, he's doing like physical performance training, and he mentioned somebody that he was working with. He was like, oh, this guy, he's so good, he doesn't even need a coach. I'm like, no, even the best performers all need coaches. And sometimes the better somebody is or the higher level, the more coaches they have. Yeah, like you'd imagine Steph Curry doesn't just have a basketball coach, he has a shooting coach. He probably has a nutritionist, easy for me to say. But like, all of those things that go into making who you are. So I guess from that statement or little soliloquy there, uh, are there specific pieces of your personal and professional life that you look to other resources to develop?
All the time, all the time. So, and it changes over time too. As I grow, that's the other thing about coaches, and I've been in groups and all the things is, you know, my ideal place to be is at the bottom of a group where all these people are ahead of me, because I want to learn from people who are ahead of me. And then as I make it up towards the top, then I'm like, all right, I need to go to another room. And that includes coaches too. And coaches, and again, I mean, I probably had five, like actually paid hired coaches. I've probably had 5 to 8, maybe more in my career. And, this is not a knock on coaches, but eventually they teach you everything they can teach you. And if you're a good student, you've learned it all. It's time to go find somebody else to learn new things from, get new perspectives. And so that's the other thing I think about coaches too. I think we all need them. And I think there comes a times where it's time to move on and look for sort of the next frontier that you need to go improve on yourself.
That makes sense. And hopefully reflective enough to understand when that is and be able to make that change. As far as your day-to-day business and what you do, are there any other specific tools? Again, I'm going to go to the show theme here, but are there tools that you use or you found to be successful, whether that's a CRM, whether it's your database? I know you mentioned LinkedIn. Like, what are some of the tools that you use to be successful?
So I'm a big marketing guy, so I love all the marketing stuff. So LinkedIn, I haven't last 2 weeks I haven't been super active, but I started on there about 3.5 years ago, and it's been great for me. I've got my own podcast, so I have a vendor and the tools for that. Really enjoy doing that. Um, so I send out a weekly email to my list, and I use. Do you want me to name what I use, or just
Yeah, whatever you got.
okay?
And listen, and your podcast too, and your book. You're also an author, correct?
Yep, that came
So
out in
yeah,
October.
yeah. Well, congratulations. Like,
Thank you.
this is your platform too, man.
Yeah.
Share it all. Don't hide.
It's also so maybe it doesn't work for every business, but I think it probably does. But a weekly email to your list, I think, might be the most important thing anybody should do if you want to grow your brand, grow your business. Um, that's super important. And people, it doesn't have to be some fancy, you know, 20-page email with all these subparts and graphics and all that. In fact, that's probably counterproductive, but you need to stay in touch with your people over and over and over again. Um, and I'm convinced that's one of the main reasons I was able to build this practice. I started doing that maybe 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, and still have a lot of the same people on my list. They have stuck around the whole time. So that's a big thing. And it used to be called ConvertKit. It's now called Kit. There's some other competitors, but that's one that I use. It's pretty simple. What else do I do? So I do a lot of stuff. So I send a monthly print newsletter
Okay.
to a different list. The good thing about the print newsletter, it's a little more expensive, but they cannot unsubscribe. And and you can add people to that list. They're not going to be quite as mad if you add them to an email list. And then the other thing I say, I tell people, this paper here that, even if they just get the thing in the mail, see my name or see my firm's name and throw it in the trash, they've still seen my name every month. So that's another thing we do. What else?
Well,
You know,
to that point, I was explaining this to somebody is that it's mental real estate. Even that marketing, that branding, that one glimpse that you got, like, hey, that's an engagement. That's a touch, and it's important.
absolutely. YouTube. I have not really gone down that path yet, but we post our podcast stuff on YouTube. I love it as a consumer. You talk about tools that I use whenever I want to learn something. That's one of the first places I go and see, are there experts out there that have posted educational videos on that topic? And I love it. It is one of my favorite things. It's really amazing what we've got nowadays. So
Yeah.
YouTube, top of the list.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I want to talk about the well. First of all, on the podcast and the content that you're putting out. How do you determine what you're going to put out? Like, how do you list out, like, I'm gonna say this week or this week and or post this, and are they usually aligned? Like the marketing email and the LinkedIn, are those things all scheduled and, like, scheduled out for a month in advance?
So the email, well, let me back up. So my busy season for what I do is really like mid-October to mid-April. So people start thinking about leaving their firm or starting a new firm in the fall. And then January hits is when they start doing it. And then if they're leaving a place, sometimes fights break out. And so that's my main sort of busy season. And so during that season, my content is definitely geared towards those kinds of internal conversations that my potential clients are having. And I'm dropping content on those issues And they're probably like, wow, how does he know I'm thinking about this? So, I'm trying to get in the mind of my potential clients during that. So that stuff for sure is very intentional. The rest of the year, on the print newsletter, I'll say I have somebody that internally that helps, and she comes up with a theme every month, and we've sort of plotted those out because we want to have the theme in there. The weekly email, it's really just sort of like what's on my mind that week. I just pop it out. And then LinkedIn, I have maybe 3 to 5 broad categories that I try to stay in and just constantly hit those from different angles.
And my introduction to you, I think it was so authentic, and you have your own voice, it seems, and that's one of the things that's very. So, did you feel like this is something that's evolved over the time that you were like, oh yeah, like this is me. I can say this through my lens, and I just feel comfortable saying it.
Yes. So when I started posting, it was scary. It's like I did not want to put myself out there. It was very bland. It was very scary. And I'm not as, I don't pump out super controversial stuff like some people do, maybe just to do it. But I do give my takes on things. And I think over time, I've just gotten more comfortable. Early on, I cared what everybody would think. And I can't say I don't care, but I don't care as much. I'm just throwing it out there. And sometimes it's great if they disagree because then it drives the engagement. But I feel like I just by virtue, and I post about the stuff we do here, the experience I've had. I don't disclose client confidences or anything like that. But I think it's important, a lot of the lessons that I've learned personally and just through representing folks through things that come out. And I just think it's people should hear about these things and think about these things as they are going down the path. So I enjoy just putting it out there and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything that like as far as I mentioned authenticity, but like a talent that you've had that has been a through line throughout your career, when you talked about really liking litigation and then you're curious, has there been something that you're like, what, this is like some of the driving essence of who I am that has been a through line?
I would say the top two things. I mean, definitely curious, all this, but I'd say the top two things is that I'm a doer. I take action. And my big mantra is consistency. So random action here and there is not going to do it. It's got to be consistent. Whatever goals you set, you got to do it. So for example, today I track it. I don't know exactly. I think is the 150 something day in a row that I've exercised. I exercise every day. Um, when I started my podcast, I told myself I'm going to commit to doing it every week, publishing one episode every week for 3 years before I make any judgments of whether it works or I like it or I'm going to stop or not. So I hadn't finished. I'm in my 3rd year now. So at the end of this year, I will then maybe decide. But part in my mind is a lot of people, I think, quit too soon. They go down this path and they stop too soon and you never see the results. So again, consistency, consistent action, I think is the through line for my entire career.
Yeah. Well, also on that point about the podcast and about anything that you do, that you enjoy doing it. And
Yeah.
I love meeting interesting people and hearing about their stories and journeys. So I'm like, yeah, why would I stop? This is fun. And you get to have these conversations. I learn every time. And then even because when I go back and, work with some of the editing and things like that, I feel like I'm learning even more. And there's other things that maybe I didn't pick up in the initial conversation, but I learned more. And I've also learned throughout, my journey is that this is the way I learn best. I can read a book and, I'll get parts of it, but like actually doing things or having a conversation or even better, being in person, there's a whole different level of learning that takes place. And so, yeah, like why would I stop? Like I love doing it. No, that's pretty cool. And congratulations on the whatever 1,000 something day you've exercised. Is there a specific exercise? Is like CrossFit or running or lifting? Is
It's
there?
Well, I definitely lift, but I mix it up, and I have a broad definition. So I guess maybe 3 years ago we went to Disney and we would walk 28,000 steps in a day. I counted that. I mean,
Oh
because I
yeah.
was just all over the place. Although I did work out a couple times too, but I have sort of a minimal amount of activity that I have to do to sort of check the box. But yeah, I do not miss a day. Knock on wood. And
Yeah.
I do not intend to miss a day until I either physically cannot or I'm dead. So
I'd like to talk about the process of writing your book. Well, not just doesn't have to just be the book, but are there certain things that you've discovered about yourself through the process of creation? Not just, I mean, just creating the business, but also I understand, like, when you're writing a book and you're trying to formulate your thoughts, and it's a different thing than a podcast. But like, is there anything that you've really discovered about yourself through these processes?
I'm sure there's a lot. The process of doing content creation, the book, the LinkedIn, all the stuff. There's a lot of people out there that say, I don't know what to write about. Everybody has something to write about. Everybody, I don't care where you are in your journey, you have a life, you have an experience, you have a story to tell, and you have a perspective. And so I did find the more that I do it, the more that I'm seeing ideas everywhere about to write about, and the more that I'm noticing in real time, hey, that would be a good story or post to make. And it's fun. And I haven't really thought about it too much. I did meet someone recently who got me turned on to the idea. It's this concept of ethical wills. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's also known as like legacy letters. And it is creating, whether it could be written, video, oral, or audio versions, but you're recording stories and lessons and advice and things for your kids and for your grandkids and others. And it's a way to sort of leave a legacy for them that they can have forever and ever. So I think a lot about that. And now I'm beginning to think about some of the content I'm posting is, my kids, if something happened to me today, they could go find this stuff and maybe get some insights into me and maybe remember some of me. I don't know.
That is so crazy that you brought that up, because that's my wife and I were just talking about that this morning. Should something happen to what I'm like, well, I got over 100 podcast episodes they can go back and watch if
Yeah.
they ever want to hear my annoying voice anymore. uh, well, that's crazy that you just brought that up. But okay, so I know we have limited time left, but I wanna bring this part up because you said you're a doer. And that really resonates with me because I am a doer. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, what I say, I shoot before I aim. And sometimes I leap before I look. Um, have there been any instances where that came back to bite you, where you're like, oh, but I'm sure there's lessons to be learned, but you were like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't have put that out so quick.
You know, I don't know if I would frame it that way. There are a lot of unfinished projects. I'll say that. Um, and I don't know if I hear people say I'm a quick start or this, that, and the other. I've never taken whatever quiz that is, but in my mind, I feel like if I don't start the process, then it may not happen. So like starting a podcast, for example, you're not going to go immediately and start recording that day, but you can take the first step. You can buy the equipment. You can reach out to a vendor. You can subscribe to the platform. There are things you can do. And the other thing I will say this that I found too is when I start to spend money on something, I commit. I commit a little bit more because I'm like, all right, I'm paying for it now, and so I'll get it done. So not that I recommend everybody go spend the money, but the little steps you take really lead you down that path. But also because I quickly start doing things, I have a lot of unfinished projects, and I regret that. But some stick, some don't.
Yeah, but you got to try. You got to shoot the shot.
Yeah,
You got to do the
yeah,
thing. And that's one of the things that I think about a lot, about because it's just the way I am. Like I take, I won't even call them big risks, but I'm like, oh, I'm interested in that, and I take the step forward and I do the one thing, and hopefully that evolves and turns into a second step, third step. And you're right. Some things work out, some things don't. But I feel like every time I do that, it leads to something, and usually it's positive in one way or another, depending on how you look at it. And the way I like to look at it is like sometimes you don't know what's behind that door until you walk through that door. And sometimes you walk through that door and there's 5 other doors and you're like, oh, I would
Yeah.
have never known that was here. Um, and it makes me not feel as, just it makes me feel like the things that I didn't get finished or done thing, it's okay because I'm not afraid to move forward and go through the next door or go to the next thing. So I've learned, so to your point, I've learned to give
Yeah.
myself a little grace there, but
Yeah.
also I'll say there's a guy, he's like a, I don't know, modern philosopher. I don't know what you call it, novel Ravikant. Just name sound familiar?
Yeah.
So he was on some podcast one time and he was talking about his relationship with books. And I've always looked at reading. Well, for a long time I looked at reading as almost like a chore, like something you had to do. And so I would get a book and I would like, oh, I got to finish this. And listen to him talk about his relationship with books. He's like, I pick up a book. If I like it, I keep reading. If I don't, I put it down, or I skip to the next chapter, or just read the first. He's like, and maybe I come back to it. Maybe it's not the right time. He's like, but it's my time, it's my life, it's my interest, and I don't have to. And that flipped a switch in me that was like, oh, yeah, like I've been looking at this in not the wrong way, but a different way. And maybe I can look at taking chances that same way of like, you explore, you're curious, you try the thing and it doesn't work out, but you learn and you meet cool people along the way.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's really good. I
Yeah.
like that.
In our final minutes here, so I'm gonna share the links to your podcast, your website, your LinkedIn, your book, all the things. I'm gonna share all that in the show notes. But any parting thoughts or words or things that you want to share with the audience?
I don't know. I think, we're all on our own journey. It's, you sometimes have to remind yourself that, do the things that are right for you, not the things you think you should be doing or you think that other people want or that other people are doing. Because I see this a lot just in my field, but I think everybody sees it everywhere. You see all these people doing all these things. They're like, I should be doing that too. Where maybe not. Maybe you should be doing something different. You need to stay true to yourself and just stay where stay in your lane. You can explore other things if you think that's what might be something you're interested in, but live your life for you, not for somebody else, I guess is the way I'd say it.
That's right. Amen. Wise words, sage words to end the conversation. I'm so glad we were able to schedule this. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me, Dustin.